It's Friday. I have salted caramel whiskey. That's what it's going to be like tonight. There are so many stories to cover tonight, and I really want to leave a lot of time for questions. I was talking about this on Patreon that I really want to get to your questions because there are so many different things that are legal and that the legal doesn't always match with how we feel about the things, the way the things are happening. So tonight we are going to do a very quick Duggar update, a really quick Girardi update. We are going to talk about what happened tragically on the set of Alec Baldwin's movie Rust. We're going to talk about the ending of the Brian Laundrie manhunt in his remains being identified and a new determination just today from the coroner that the autopsy has been completed with no cause of death and no manner of death. And then just a few Britney Spears updates and then questions because James Spears has some new attorneys. We'll just talk about what I think that might mean real quick. Thank you for coming in, Law Nerds. I know it's not going to be a light stream. We need to get back to caterpillar cakes at some point, but tonight is not the night. There's a lot of really heavy legal stuff, and I hope that facts in all of it will help, even when we don't like what the facts say, that it will just help bring some understanding, and that's what we're here for. So, here's a drink to maybe no more filings from Vivian Thuren, like silver linings. Silver linings. We should just get into it. Oh, and we have some new little intros for you. So I have we'll see if we get to it tonight, but we have a new DEFCON red alert system and I'm very excited about that. So let's just go. Let me know where you're coming in from and what you're drinking if you're drinking. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. Hello, VO from the UK. I know it's 1 a.m., so I'm sure if you are drinking anything, it is water. Well, that's not true. I mean, people younger than me stay up till 1 a.m. I don't see 1 a.m. often. I don't want to see 1 a.m. often. Look, I have eye luggage on a good day. This is a gift from my parents. Thank you, Mom and Dad. We appreciate the geneticness of my face. But, I also need to sleep. I am a woman of a certain age. we need our sleep. We need our sleep for sure. It's 9 a.m. in Seoul, South Korea. Drinking milk tea sounds delicious. I like milk tea. It is good. It is good. And I'm seeing our first law nerd that is saying it is their very first live. Any of you that are joining your first live, you can go ahead and put a 1 in the chat so the law nerds can welcome you with love and enthusiasm. And if you want to join the chat, you just need to be a subscriber for a few minutes. It really, when we get into the thousands, there's already over 2,000 of us in here and we just got started. It can really cut down on some of the nonsense. So welcome in everybody that's new. So good to see you. Apple Rosé. I'm fascinated. And before we move on, I've got to say to the replay crew, love you. There will be timestamps down below so you can get into exactly what you want to watch. And if you want to join kind of the Law Nerd conversations that we're having in Patreon, you can do that at Law Nerds Unite. I just want to make sure I share that exists. We are coming up on we'll have our members only live stream at the beginning of next month. I'm going to be putting up a calendar. Our Zoom call for the month for the quarter will be coming up. All kinds of things happening over in the Patreon. So that's what's going on. All right. We should just get to our weekly roundup. The topics, you guys, today are so heavy. Love the nails. What's the name of the colors? I have no idea. They are dip, and it is an orange glitter faded to a black, just a plain black powder. And then I've got one of the the black Holo Taco iridescent-y hollow one on my toesies because look, it is spooky season. It's a spooky season vibe. I love spooky season. I love fall. You know this. I started celebrating pumpkin spice in literally August. I can't believe it's already October. Speaking of which, just on a housekeeping matter, next week the 30th already? Oh my God, is next Friday already like the end of the month? Please tell me that it's not, but I think that it is. Yeah, the 29th next month. I will not be live next Friday because I will be not at home. I will be traveling for a conference. So next week, we will not have a Friday Night Live. Go enjoy the Halloween festivities. Yes. Okay, let's do the YouTube things. Let's get into the weekly roundup because it's time. And yeah, can you see I'm avoiding? You're like, Emily, stop avoiding. Stop avoiding. And I'm like, no, sad story. Like, it's just a rough week. This week's rough. Like, I'm having all the feelings. We'll talk about the feelings. We'll talk about the facts. We'll talk about the feelings. We'll talk about any fuckery that may exist. I have a lot of questions and a lot of questions that aren't going to get answered. And that's deeply frustrating. So we should just start our weekly roundup. Weekly roundup. Don't you love a weekly roundup? We're going to start with Josh Duggar. Why? Because then I won't get asked 17 times when we get to questions. Are there any updates on Josh Duggar? Here's the thing. Josh Duggar, it doesn't seem to have entered a change of plea motion. That change of plea motion was due. There is not a change of plea motion in the court files or in the public court records that are accessible. That means their pretrial conference is November 18th and trial is set to start November 30th. So countdown to Duggar trial coverage. That's it. That's it. Duggar's going to trial. I don't know why anyone would think that's a good idea, but okay. We will see things get filed in getting ready for the Duggar trial, but we will cover it. There's jury stuff going on too with Ahmaud Arbery's trial. I have not gotten into that yet. I have not looked at the jury selection because it's been so much to keep up with, but that will be coming in future shows as well. So that's what's going on with Duggar. November 30th, he'll be in trial. Let's go through. There's a great Law 360 article that kind of summarizes like the road so far with where we're at with all the new updates in the Girardi case. And I thought it was really great. So we're going to just go through their breakdown really quick because I thought it was really great. That's the truth of the matter. Look, the screen was already ready to share. It's like we're professionals. Let's just make it a little bit bigger. I think this is the only picture everyone has of Girardi at the moment, but it is a piece by Brandon Lowry over at Law 360. I really always appreciate their reporting. A lot of their reporters are also attorneys, or a lot of their writers are also attorneys, and they really do break stuff down great. But I love the shade in the title. Mansions, lingerie, and $1.8 billion. Girardi trustees hunt for cash. It feels like the hunt for Red October, right? The hunt for cash. So let's talk about what this hunt for cash is. Their hunt has taken them through a complicated and poorly documented web of bank accounts, properties, and high-value lawsuits. It has caused clashes with Girardi's estranged wife, singer and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Erica Girardi. No shit. And raised questions about what has been going on at the firm. Also, no shit. So what's so interesting about the way that they stated that is that, yeah, there have been a lot of clashes with Erica on social media, but also the poorly documented bank accounts. We've learned this particularly from Trustee Miller's filings that the law firm sounded like a trail of just papers piled high on every surface. It sounded that it was not well kept, that it was just kind of falling apart. And I know there are lots of questions about Tom Girardi's, dementia or Alzheimer's. Hi, Fred. Hi. What did you find? You found this? Yes. All right. I will give it back. Go on. You go. Paw nerds. And I know there's been a lot of questions about the state of whether he has dementia, doesn't have dementia. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to diagnose anybody. I have questions. We all do. But the state of the law firm has also been very interesting. And I'm wondering if that was always the state of the law firm. And I would love to hear something from the other lawyers about whether this was something that was shifting or changing, or whether the law firm was always kept in such disarray, and whether the books were always kept in such disarray. I'm curious, just because more information is helpful. They talk about Girardi Keese halting business last December when everything went down in Chicago after the Edelson PC lawsuit, and that trustee Jason Rund is liquidating Girardi's estate. That's his personal estate. Elsa Miller is liquidating the law firm. Valuable cases. The most valuable assets of Girardi Keese are the cases it was handling when forced into bankruptcy. Perhaps most notably, the firm had thousands of clients with shares of a recent $1.8 billion settlement stemming from a natural gas leak in California. That settlement was recently approved, and bringing that settlement funds in, Girardi Keese is still entitled to their fees and their portion of that settlement for their clients. Those clients, at least the bankruptcy trustee is going to be handling out those settlements. So those clients can rest assured that they will get those funds. But also, that money goes back. Well, let me just read the rest of the article because it'll explain. The firm's estate gets 45% of the attorney's fees and 50% of the cost from those cases under a deal between the trustee and co-counsel, the San Diego-based France Law Group, which could mean tens of millions of dollars for the firm's creditors. This case settling and the attorney's fees going back into the firm means that the firm will have those assets to distribute to its creditors in order of priority per the rules of bankruptcy. And that will be something that will be helpful, hopefully not just to legal lenders, but also to the clients that have not gotten paid, not the alleged victims, the actual victims of the actions of Tom Girardi. Let's continue on. The trustee has farmed out other mass tort cases to other law firms. And when those cases go out, Fred just wants to play catch. When those cases go out, there are thank you for stepping on the keyboard, Fred. There are attorney fees agreements that go with them as the attorneys finish handling those cases. So that is a benefit of these cases resolving. They say, for example, Girardi Keese will split fees on its lawsuits related to the October 2017 mass shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, because they are representing a number of plaintiffs there. And that will receive 25% of its fees for the cases in the National Football League concussion litigation, and the other law firm will receive 75% of fees. So money will be coming into the firm other than just from anything that might come from Erica Girardi. And from EJ, what we have seen is that you are just having the most fun, Fred. What we have seen from, EJ's lawyers in recent statements to the press in response to being asked questions, Evan Borges said that he does not believe Erica owes anything with regard to the law firm, but we will see. And I've shared, those are the kinds of things I share on Twitter when those little snippets happen. So if you don't follow me there, it's just at the Emily D. Baker. They are talking about the litigation lenders scrutinize this. Look, if you go back to my very first Emily Show podcast episode about this case, and that's even before I renamed it to, the Emily Show. That's when it was still the Get Legit Law and Shit podcast. You just want to be everywhere. You just want to be everywhere. Well, don't put your tail in my whiskey. Fred. So when that came down, I was looking at the information from the litigation lenders, and I was like, looking at all the problems they were having getting their money back, going, why are they still lending to him? And it does seem that there were relationships there that I just didn't understand how much there were relationships there. And it's wild to me that they really did keep lending to him after ages of him not paying and them having to sue. It's wild. So I'm not surprised that the trustees are looking more into the legal lenders and what they were up to. So the article goes on to say Girardi Keese's bankruptcy trustee wants to investigate several litigation lenders who poured tens of millions of dollars into the firm in recent years, even as they had reason to believe Girardi had not been using the money appropriately. The trustee said at least 3 lenders had access to Girardi Keese's financial information and may have known something was wrong earlier. Sometimes the lenders were not paid promptly from attorney's fees, but later from the law firm's general fund. Right. It was so sketch. Miller did not name any lenders specifically, but several lenders are creditors in the bankruptcy action. And then it goes on to list them. These we've talked about. Then there's a whole section on EJ versus RR. And are we just going with RR for Ron Richards? Yep. We're just nicknaming everyone on this channel with 2 initials because it's easier. So EJ versus RR. Since Girardi Keys' trustee appointed special counsel RR to investigate whether EJ had any property that belongs to the law firm, the social media savvy lawyer, sure, and the reality TV star have clashed on Twitter, YouTube, and in federal courts. Erica hasn't been on YouTube. Erica hasn't been on YouTube at all. But, she's definitely been on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram's left out, but there has been shade on Instagram as well. Since then, Richards has alleged that Erica needs to pay back the $25 million she received from the law firm and put her, American Express bills on Twitter and told her that she had to pay or else. Also on Twitter. I've never seen settlement negotiations happen so aggressively on Twitter, but you all know how I feel about that. Erica has twice asked the bankruptcy judge to throw RR out of the case based on his tweets and on YouTube gossip shows. Sorry, Up and Adam. We're Up and Adam is a friend of the channel where RR has mostly done his interviews. I don't know if it's a YouTube gossip show, but maybe. Isn't that what commentary is half the time anyway? So I'm sure no shade is intended. Kind of is what it is, isn't it? Erica claims that RR harassed her, made prejudicial statements about her, and tried to argue with her on Twitter about issues related to the litigation, arguments that Judge Russell said he found less than convincing when he rejected her motion to remove RR in August. I find the motion totally without merit, Judge Russell wrote. Correct. It appears to be nothing more than a blatant attempt by Mr. Girardi to impede Richard's efforts on behalf of the trustee to investigate the allegedly fraudulent transfer. Yeah, the judge did not give a shit what was going on Twitter. Some of us were a little more aghast, but the judge did not care. So, Erica appealed the decision to a district court in late August, and the appeal is still pending. By the time the appeal gets heard, it's probably going to be A, too late, and B, irrelevant, but I'll be interested to see what they say anyway. In the other bankruptcy case, Axe is investigating whether Erica has community property. The trustee in the litigation has said Erica could be a co-debtor to millions of claims in the estate. Well, Erica has also now said that. On the finale, part 2, she said something to the effect of, I'm not getting half of everything. Well, I'm entitled to half the litigation or half the liability. And that's why all these lawsuits are being pointed at me. She said it more than once in the second part of the reunion that she's like, well, everybody's saying I'm responsible for half of the liabilities and there are no assets left in their marital estate, it seems. So, selling Girardi Keys. The disassembly and sale of Girardi's once vaunted law firm has at times veered into the surreal. Yes. Let's talk about the red panties. After selling 2 jets and a portion of the law firm's offices, Girardi Keys trustee in August cataloged and auctioned off abundant items found in the building. There was a Cadillac, tons of office equipment, and an array of puzzling tchotchkes. The event resembled a dark satire. Accurate. They sold off all of his awards and EJ memorabilia and the coat rack that Heather McDonald on Juicy Scoop has and the underwear that Ryan Bailey from So Bad It's Good podcast has. It's just crazy, but I love that all the Bravo fans have a piece of this story somewhere. I'm waiting for something to end up in the Bravo Clubhouse. Photos and paintings of a grinning Tom Girardi sold for hundreds of dollars a piece. Lingerie stashed at the office. In Tom Girardi's desk drawer. Just saying. It came up at the reunion, and now we know how much it sold for. Lingerie stashed at the office and sized for a petite woman went for $350. One or more people spent thousands of dollars to procure awards that honored Girardi's legal acumen and advocacy for the downtrodden. That felt dark to me. The selling of the awards that don't feel, I don't know, that don't sit right anymore. For $20, someone bought an autographed set of DVDs in which celebrated Italian actor Roberto Bengali? No, I'm going to get that wrong. Benini? Crap. Dramatically recites Dante's Inferno, a 14th century epic poem that describes the ironically fitting torments visited upon sinners. The auction brought in $267,000. Fred, for the love. Here, you can play with it over there. The Pasadena Mansion. Oh, onto the keyboard. There we go. The Pasadena Mansion, Girardi's 10,000 square foot mansion near downtown Los Angeles, seemed like a potentially huge source of money for creditors at the outset of the litigation, with an estimated value of $16.5 million. The estate, it turns out, was wildly optimistic. Girardi's personal bankruptcy trustee listed the property for $13 million in May, but the prices plummeted further ever since. After a trio of seven-figure slashes, the mansion is now listed for $8.9 million. So, hey, Britney Spears is looking at, Jeffree Star's mansion. Maybe she wants to live in Pasadena. I mean, maybe not. It seems to be not as remote and private as Jeffree Star's Hidden Hills house that's up for sale, but maybe Brit wants it. Maybe it's a steal at $8.9 million, but you never know what kind of repair it might need because it's a sale as is. The property was often featured. I don't know if I would say often. It was featured on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and includes 4 bedrooms. I mean, only 4 bedrooms and 10,000 square feet seems wild to me, but okay. 6 bathrooms, a wine room, a chapel, a library, a study. The chapel has someone in the floor. Fascinated. Well, a carving of someone in the floor. A study, and it's on a 74,000 square foot lot. The backyard has a fountain, a pool, and a pavilion. It was Girardi's primary residence until he was moved to a skilled nursing facility on August 9th, according to court documents. Girardi bought the home in 1980 for $1 million. The mansion was listed as collateral for multiple loans. The personal estate prioritizes the Rui Gomez family. Girardi Keese owes tens of millions of dollars to former clients who claim the firm stole their settlement funds. What did you knock over? Fred, you've been sleeping all day. See, I let you nap, and now you're up to no good. He's knocking over the trash can. Fantastic. The Rui Gomez family has a lien on the property, so do some of the legal lenders. So that is part of what will come out of the home. So what else? The home on the golf course. So the La Quinta property that was brought up on this season of Real Housewife has sold. Of that money, it sold for $1.25 million. Of that money, $730,000 will go to repay creditors, primarily the Rui Gomez family, who will receive $584,000, which, though a lot of money, is nowhere close to the $11 million that they are owed. The remaining $146,000 will go to unsecured claimants, a group that includes numerous ex-clients. The bankruptcy trustee of the personal estate, Jason Runn, will receive $30,000. Those are fees. The counsel for the trustee will receive $335,000, according to court documents, and the rest will go to taxes, broker expenses, and other expenses. And that is kind of where we're at with regard to the dividing up, the disseminating out, the settling of the bankruptcy estate of both Tom Girardi and a little bit of Girardi Keese. There is also this Edelson PC motion that is outstanding. It was supposed to be heard in early November. It has now been pushed back to November 16th. Erica and the bankruptcy trustee are on the same side opposing it. Well, the bankruptcy trustee for the law firm. I will talk about that probably on Tuesday and go through Erica's objection. All that motion really means Edelson PC asked for the court to say, hey, does Erica get protected by the bankruptcy stay, even though she's not a debtor? Because the bankruptcy stops all other litigation. They're proceeding forward in the litigation in Illinois against 2 of the other lawyers from the Girardi Keese firm. It stayed as to Tom Girardi and to the firm. They want a determination as to whether it's stopped as to Erica, because she is not the debtor, Tom, and his law firm are. She keeps saying, it's not me, it's not me. And then she's objecting to the relief from stay. So if you guys are interested, let me know. We will go over her opposition. Well, her and the bankruptcy trustees' opposition that's placing them on the same side. It's so funny how things shift in litigation, but putting them on the same side of objecting to that motion and not allowing or seeking to not allow Edelson PC to continue on with its lawsuit against Erica and the other lawyers of the estate outside of the umbrella of bankruptcy. So those are kind of our quick bits with regard to what's going on in the Duggar case and the Girardi case. We are going to move on to the set tragedy with regard to Alec Baldwin's show Rust. I'm going to swoop just so it's easier to timestamp. Look, I remember when everything went down with Brandon Lee on the filming of The Crow. This brings a lot of that back up. It is tremendously sad. And people have been asking about the legal liability, about the potential criminal liability, if any. That is why I am bringing this up and talking about it, just to kind of give you my lawyer thoughts. But for those of you who have not been following this story, yesterday, Alec Baldwin fired a firearm, a prop gun on the New Mexico set of Rust, and the cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed by that misfire, and the director was injured and is still being taken care of and recovering. They are saying that there is still an investigation into what kind of projectile was discharged from the weapon, whether it was an actual bullet, whether it was a blank. There is a email from one of the unions saying a live round was fired, but that could be a blank or that could be a bullet. That is being investigated. I'm sure they will know and release that in due time. But the things that are starting to swirl around this is that the crew had walked off the set that morning, or a substantial amount of the crew had walked off the set that morning, which raises a lot of safety issues. There had been 2 misfires with the gun. Film sets are supposed to have not just a props master, but particularly in California, a master at arms who deals with the weaponry. There's a lot that is supposed to happen with weaponry on set to make sure that it is safe, to make sure that this does not happen. And it seemed that the cinematographer had been battling with production over the conditions of this movie set with the crew before this happened. It's tragic. It's preventable. It further illustrates why there are protests in Hollywood and why there are unions that are staging walkouts over working conditions, not just for actors, but for members of crew, because it's not just the actors and actresses who need to be taken care of. It is the crew. So we're going to pull up just a couple of the articles about it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on liability. It's preventable. It's horrible. I have the feelings. There is no reason why this should happen. And after there had been other complaints about gun safety on this set, why those weren't investigated. So it's just. So let's get to the facts as we have them based on what's being reported from both. Well, I'm going to go through USA Today, the LA Times, and from the Daily Mail, which was sent to me. It's the first place I saw the bit about the crew walking off a set, and that was sent from Laundrie Kristen on Twitter. So Laundrie Kristen, thank you for sending me the Daily Mail article, because I was like, oh, there's more there. But you look, I used to make fun of USA Today when I would travel, and it would always be in the hotel, like out in front of the hotels. But I found generally USA Today has been pretty balanced in the things that they share and thorough. So, hey, USA Today, I appreciate you. Thank you. Fred is just wanting to play fetch. I don't know what's happening tonight. He has got the wind under his tail and he is ready to go. So let's talk about the information that comes to us from this USA Today article, and I will link it in the description of the video so that if you guys want to go check out this article, you can. All right. They executed a search warrant on Friday, that was today, at the Bonanza Creek Ranch where Rust was in production. Yes, of course, there was a criminal investigation. Someone was killed with a weapon. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. USA Today obtained an email sent to members of IATSE. I don't know if you pronounce that differently. I am not part of actor unions or production unions or director unions, but ITASE Local 44, a union of prop makers and other craftsperson who work within the entertainment industry, about the incident. The message said that the prop gun from Rust was loaded with a live single round and that no Local 44 members were on set. That indicates to me that the individual who was the prop master was not part of that union. There are union rules you have to follow on set. IATSE, thank you so much, Leonards. That you have people who are following the rules, and there are rules about checking and double checking and whether you fire something before you hand it to an actor. The safety protocols that are in place by unions are followed by union members. Not saying that people who aren't union members aren't professionals, just saying that the safety protocols might not be the same. And clearly something failed horribly when there is a weapon in an actor's hand that can hurt someone. Because it just, again, it's avoidable and it shouldn't happen. The email goes on to say, as many of us have heard, there was an accidental weapons discharge on the production titled Rust being filmed in New Mexico. A live single round was accidentally fired on set by a principal actor. Rios told US Today Friday that he can neither confirm nor deny what ammunition was in the prop gun. That information is one of the particulars that we're trying to determine at this point, what kind of projectile was in the firearm. The general IATSE office has no comment, and the email sent to Local 44 members, but on the email sent to Local 44 members, but sent a statement of condolences to the Hutchins family. Our entire crew mourns this unspeakable loss with Helena's family, friends, and the Rust crew. I mean, I imagine that everyone involved is fucking horrified and just feels so devastated. It's just a lot. Previously, a spokesperson for Baldwin told the Associated Press that there was an accident on set. Baldwin spoke publicly on Friday on Twitter, saying that he was fully cooperating with police. There are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding the tragic accident that took the life of Helena Hutchins, a wife, mother, and deeply admired colleague of ours. He went on. There is a second tweet to this. Let's see if we can just pull up the second tweet since we are reading it. The second part of that is, I am in touch with her husband, offering my support to him and his family. My heart is broken for her husband and their son and all who knew and loved her. It's just heartbreaking. Baldwin also added that he has been in contact with her family, and that's the second part we just read. I am not able to comment about the facts or the process that we're going through right now, but I appreciate that everyone has been very sympathetic. I'm sure there will be lots of lawyers involved in all of this, and we will talk about that. I can't, this is one of those things that a lot of people are going to go, well, what if we had just listened when they complained earlier? Because there were complaints earlier. It seems from the reports that this didn't come out of the blue, that there were other misfires, and that should have been a signal that something was wrong. And that's why people walked off of this set. And that should have been a signal that something was wrong. We'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see. The incident is still under active investigation. No charges have been filed. I'll talk about that when I finish talking about the news reports. The International Cinematographers Guild confirmed that the woman fatally shot was Helena. The details are unclear at the moment, but we are working to learn, and we support a full investigation into this tragic event. SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher and National Executive Director Duncan Crabtree released a joint statement saying that they are working with producers, unions, and authorities to prevent such a thing from happening again. I mean, it should have been prevented from happening again the last time that it happened. We are devastated by this tragic news. Our hearts go out to the family of the director of photography, Helena Hutchins, who passed away, and to the director, Joel Souza, who was injured and is hospitalized. We, along with the entire film community in New Mexico, are saddened by the tragedy. They go on to talk about Hutchins' legacy, those that loved her. I mean, there are just tons of comments regaling what a wonderful person she was to work with, and other reactions that happened on Twitter. The LA Times article has a little bit more detail, and we will go into that just briefly. Again, I will link that for you guys. So if you want to go read these full articles, you can. They will all be linked down below. Thank you as we go through them, because it's just because it makes me sad, and it's preventable stuff just is so frustrating. The LA Times article says that Baldwin's stunt double accidentally fired 2 rounds Saturday after being told that the gun was cold, lingo for a weapon that doesn't have any ammunition, including blanks. 2 crew members who witnessed the episode told the LA Times. That is less than a week before this happened. They knew, they were told, and that's going to factor in to civil liability for the production company and for production, because they were aware that there was an issue. So that awareness will factor into civil liability, not necessarily criminal liability, but it can, and we'll talk about potential criminal liability in a minute. So 3 crew members who were present at set that day said they were particularly concerned about the 2 accidental prop gun discharges on Saturday. They go on to say there should have been an investigation into what happened Saturday. There were no safety meetings. There was no assurance that it wouldn't happen again. All they wanted to do was rush, rush, rush. Look, I am completely an expert in the way TV and filmmaking works. I am not. That's all the sarcasm. But from the friends I have that work in the industry, and from listening extensively as a scholar of the Office Ladies podcast, I know that most productions have a safety meeting if there are 2 candles on set. They have safety meetings if somebody has to run down sometimes a flight of stairs as a stunt. There are generally safety meetings about everything that you can imagine. So the fact that there wasn't a safety meeting after 2 misfires is stunning to me, and that will definitely play in to what happens for this production, and what happens with the civil lawsuits that are sure to ensue, and should. I mean, it's not going to bring anyone back, and it never will, but there will be civil lawsuits here. We'll talk about the criminal stuff once we get to the end of this. It's just so odd that production wasn't stopped after the other 2 misfires to investigate it, at least for a few days. A colleague was so alarmed by the prop gun misfires, he sent a text message to the unit production manager. We've now had 3 accidental discharges. This is super unsafe, according to a copy of the message reviewed by the Times. They were on notice. The safety of our cast and crew is the top priority of Rust Productions and everyone associated with the company, Rust Movie Productions LLC said in a statement. I'm yeah, it seems that if that were true, actions before that statement would have been done differently. The tragedy occurred Thursday afternoon during filming of a gunfight that had begun in a church that is part of the old western town at the ranch. Baldwin's character was supposed to back out of the church, according to production notes obtained by the Times. Hutchins was killed. Hutchins was huddled around the monitor, lining up the next camera shot when she was accidentally killed by Baldwin. I also have questions as to why he was firing when they were lining up the shot, but I will get into it. It was the 12th day of a 21-day shoot. The actor was preparing to film a scene in which he pulls a gun out of a holster. According to a source close to production, crew members had already shouted "cold gun" on the New Mexico set. So it was believed. Don't you're just knocking things out of the way so you can lay on my desk, Fred. So if they're yelling that the gun is cold, then it's reasonable to believe that Baldwin was under the impression that the gun was cold. And that's a reasonable belief when you're being told by the people whose job it is to make sure things are safe, that they are safe. Eh, The filmmaking team was lining up its camera angles and had not yet retreated to Video Village. Instead, the B camera operator was on a dolly with a monitor, checking out the potential shots. Hutchin was looking at the monitor from over the operator's shoulder, as was the director, who was crouching behind her. Baldwin removed the gun from its holster once without incident, but the second time he repeated the action, ammunition flew towards the trio around the monitor. I mean, ammunition doesn't just move on its own. So somebody fired the weapon, because ammo doesn't just come flying out of the barrel of a gun, but okay. The projectile whizzed by the camera operator, but penetrated Hutchins near the shoulder and continued. So whatever the projectile was went through both Hutchins and then into the director. I'm sure they will recover it then and know what it is. That probably has happened already and just not been released to the public. Investigators probably know. Which also indicates to me that it was moving quickly. I don't know how close they were, but it was moving quickly and it was able to penetrate two people. Earlier that day, the camera crew showed up for work as expected at 6:30 a.m. and began gathering up their gear and personal belongings to leave. One knowledgeable crew member told The Times, labor trouble had been brewing for days on the set. Shooting began October 6th, and members of this low-budget film said they had been promised that production would pay for their hotel rooms in Santa Fe. But after filming began, the crews were told instead that they would be required to make the 50-mile drive from Albuquerque each day rather than stay overnight in nearby Santa Fe. That rackled crew members, no shit, who worried that they might have an accident after spending 12 to 13 hours on set. Well, no shit. The cinematographer had been advocating for safer conditions for her team, said one crew member who was on the set, who was cheerful when the camera crew left. She said, I feel like I'm losing my best friends. As the camera crew members of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees spent about an hour assembling their gear at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, several non-union crew members showed up to replace them. Two of the knowledgeable people said, but it sounds like that was the camera crew that had walked out. They said corners were being cut and they brought in non-union people so they could continue shooting. The shooting occurred, not the film shooting, but the weapon shooting occurred 6 hours after the union camera crew left. That's just heartbreaking. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office deputies were dispatched to the area and are investigating. No charges have been filed. Baldwin said he's fully cooperating. I can't imagine why he wouldn't. This is just tragic. So it's been reported in several places that Baldwin is also a producer on this, which is going to loop him in with civil liability as a producer of this film. Criminal liability for Baldwin. Look, there are those on set who said it was a cold gun. He had reasonable belief that it was not loaded. He was doing a lawful act. So if there were any liability there, it would go to whoever loaded the gun. I took a brief look at the law in New Mexico because this will be ruled a homicide remember when we talk about manner of death, the manner of death can be accidental, which is like falling down things, suicide, homicide, natural causes, undetermined. Homicide being at the hands of another, right? So this is a death at the hands of another. This will be ruled, manner of death, a homicide, cause of death, a gunshot wound when the coroner's reports are back. But a homicide doesn't necessarily equal a criminal murder. Those are two separate determinations. You have all manners of murder from first degree to various degrees, depending on the jurisdiction, and then into the kind of manslaughter or homicide realm. With regard to this, could it be an invol or an involuntary manslaughter? We lingoed at you. I didn't mean to lingo at you, but an involuntary means that it was not a intended or intentional. It's not voluntary. Involuntary manslaughter, which is an unintentional killing in New Mexico. That can happen if you are doing a lawful act or an unlawful act. But if it's a lawful act, it's going to require criminal negligence. And that's going to be a reckless disregard. So would that involve perhaps attached to the person who had loaded that weapon, possibly, because they were doing something lawful, right? They were allowed to use the weapon on set. But if they are criminally negligent, you are going to unplug my microphone, Kat, which would be, your reckless disregard beyond just negligence, beyond just a disregard, but a reckless disregard. And depending on what we find out with regard to this weapon, could that happen? Yes. We will see what New Mexico decides to do when this investigation wraps. I imagine we will see a lot more in the realm of civil liability and wrongful death lawsuits and what happened. So we will see. We don't know. We don't know if this was a blank, which are still projectiles and can still do harm. We don't know if this was a live round. I don't know why there would even be, or a bullet. I don't know why there would be like hard bullets, not blanks on set. It's tragic, it's avoidable, and I think that's what's so infuriating with a number of the stories we're covering tonight. They're tragic and avoidable. Like this didn't need to happen, and it just didn't. So I guess we will hear in the coming days what happens, and I'm sure, for all of this, I'm sure that Alec Baldwin feels devastated because this should never happen. So we'll see what happens with the involuntary manslaughter. I saw a quick question, and then we're going to move on to stories. The next stories that we're covering, and then I'll do questions all at the end. Is voluntary manslaughter a thing at all? Yes, in some jurisdictions, voluntary manslaughter is a thing, and there can be different degrees of voluntary manslaughter and different types of voluntary manslaughter. So yes, a lot of jurisdictions have voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter. It has to do with mental state, but with this, you're not going to, unless there is something really fucking crazy happening on this set, I can't imagine that we're going to find that this was some kind of, murderous conspiracy. I imagine that this is a tragic accident, but because that's the reporting that we have on it so far, it's just horrible. It's just horrible. So, it makes me sad. And this happened on the set of The Crow, and standards changed, and sets were supposed to get safer. And I think generally sets are safer, but this set was not safer. It sounds like members of the crew said that this set was not safer to the point where they decided to walk off. And that shows that there was an awareness. So when you get into civil liability, it's like, well, how did we know it was unsafe? This is how you know. There had been misfires. The set had, there wasn't an investigation. There wasn't a safety meeting, and the crew walked off. Oh, okay. Let us continue. Let us continue into Brian Laundrie. Look, I'm going to swoop so we can timestamp, and then I'm going to give a warning, and we are going to have an emotional support, Fred. Hello, Fred. How are you? Fred is ready for me to read, by the way. Not All Diamonds and Rosé. This is what Fred's ready for. Fred is ready. Look at how big. Fred is ready for all of the housewives' tea. No, he's not. He's just going to continue to rub his face on it. Yes, Fred. Thank you for your cat butt. Look, law nerds. And there are over 5,000 of you here. Do the likey, subscribey things. If you can't chat, you just have to be subscribed to the channel briefly, because we want to cut down on trolling, particularly around this topic. Look, there are stories that as law nerds, it is hard to not want to besmirch, disparage, wish ill and harm on people. We do not do that. We are law nerds. We're going to talk about the facts. And there are difficulties. This case is hard for me. I think this case is hard for most of us. There are so many questions. I am going to cover what we know, and then I am going to briefly cover the new lawyer stuff with Britney Spears, and then we're just going to get into questions. I am sure you have a lot of questions. I will answer as many of them as I can. I know there are very strong feelings about Brian Laundrie's family. I have feelings too, but the facts are they are parents who have lost a kid, and that is still going to be hard for them too. There is so much loss in this story that just is pointless to me. I feel horribly for Gabby Petito's family. They at least have answers, and this is the end of this. And I'll talk about the kind of what finding Brian Laundrie dead means. But I have questions about what Brian Laundrie's parents knew too, but we will talk about the law around that, and we will talk about the facts around that, because again, legality and morality in this case are divergent, and that is frustrating and it can be difficult. But we're not going to get into it too deeply because it is tragic all the way around. So, um, let us get in to the newest information with regard to Brian Laundrie, and we will. I don't know why I say Landry. It's L.A. and then in my head it just goes there. Laundrie. And if you want kind of a breakdown of the case up until this point, it is in an episode of the Emily show. You guys, there is so much that has happened. Let me know if we just need to go red lights, because there are so many questions. Let's see, as I get into this, if we need red lights for the things we do not understand, if we need to go WTF, you let me know, chat. Fred, I'm going to WTF you if you don't stop stepping on my keyboard. Hi. Are we better now? Okay. So we will see what y'all say. So I have a timeline in my in the Emily show that kind of breaks down everything up until October. So we're just going to cover what has happened after the October 7th date when Brian Laundrie's dad joined law enforcement to look at the Carlton Reserve. All of you were like, red, yes, red. All right. I look, I feel it too. There's so many questions. I feel like this whole case is in the WTF realm, right? So let us just I need to program my phone so I can do it. Red. You guys are like red. I see it. And I kind of was hoping for that response. I kind of was hoping to go red because I wanted to do that. Thank you, Tech, for the new animation. I love it, and I think the Lawnards will love it too. Let Tech know how much you love the new animation. Should we do it one more time? Should we just? Yeah, we should. Okay, I've stopped. We've done it twice. It's new. Look, I have a new toy. And a cat that needs a lot of attention. So, what we know, October 7th, Brian Laundrie's dad, Chris, joined law enforcement out at the Carlton Reserve. Here's the thing. There are two reserves, the Carlton Reserve and the Macahachie Creek Environmental Park. They are separate, but they like converge in the back. They are both massive. Please stop hitting the computer and the camera and the things. They are massive wilderness reserves. The Macahachie Creek Environmental Park is where the Mustang was sighted. So the Mustang is apparently Brian Laundrie's mom's car, but he was driving it. It's what he drove, or it's believed that he drove to the environmental park. I'm going to call Carlton Creek the reserve, the other one the environmental park, just so we can keep them separate. But that vehicle was cited, and we saw the redacted police report from September 14th showing the abandoned vehicle was parked at the Macahachie Environmental Park, which is about 16 miles from the entrance of the reserve. So the entrance of the environmental park and the entrance of the reserve are in separate places. It seems that from reports that the Laundries told law enforcement that he was going hiking in the reserve, and then they recovered the park from the Macahachie area and brought it home on September 15th, but had told law enforcement that he was at the other park, which is odd to me. I have a lot of questions about that. Yeah, were they actively misleading law enforcement? I don't know. There are questions. I'm sure law enforcement is looking into exactly what was said because now the abandoned vehicle report was tied back at a later time and they were already searching in the Carlton Reserve area, not in the environmental park area. One was searched more than the other. It is very odd to me. So on October 19th, and today as we're recording is October 22nd, on October 19th, law enforcement was notified by, I think, the lawyer, Stephen Bartolino, who has talked to all of the media outlets lately, that the Laundries wanted to go search in the Macahachie Creek Environmental Park area, and they wanted to go hike a trail that he had hiked. October 20th, they go out there, they meet with law enforcement. Northport PD meets with them. Per the lawyer's interviews, and I will link those in the description, but per the lawyer's interviews, he said that the reason or the primary reason law enforcement went with them was to prevent them from being harassed or followed by reporters. And I have not seen the reporters um, really hounding the Laundries, but maybe the Macahachie area had been flooded, and it's been reported by FBI and law enforcement that sometimes like waist deep. I'm like, well, who's waist deep? But whatever, waist deep, like feet of water, 4 feet of water or more. And that was part of the reason it was not searched as extensively as the other. And it seems that the water has since receded due to a lack of rain over the last several weeks or week. So they were out for about an hour. The Landrys found a dry bag, like a plastic roll over a dry bag that they believed belonged to Brian, and then it had items in it that were Brian's. The law enforcement that were out with them then found a backpack and then identified partial skeletal human remains. When we say skeletal, that means bones. When we say partial, that means not full. So partial skeletal remains. On October 21st, literally yesterday, which shocked the shit out of me, they identified and the FBI confirmed that those remains were Brian Laundrie's based on dental records. Today, it was reported because law enforcement didn't do a press release. The family attorney, Stephen Bartolino, confirmed to media outlets, including TMZ, that there was no manner of death and no cause of death identified. And that does not surprise me because, well, it doesn't surprise me because this lawyer said that this lawyer told media outlets that the remains were Brian's before the press release went out from the FBI. If this lawyer has been under scrutiny for the way he phrases things, the way he says things, he clearly has known this family for 20 plus years. He knew Brian Laundrie from the time he was a kid. This lawyer is a family friend who was asked to help per his interviews that he's given that we will link. So he is personally involved and invested in this, but he has been releasing information before law enforcement has been releasing it. I think, and this is just my opinion as a 15-year lawyer who's, commentates on things on the internet for a living, that waiting for law enforcement to make these announcements might not have brought as much scrutiny to him and the family. Does that make sense? So if he had just waited and let law enforcement make these announcements, he might not have so much focus on him. But he is clearly very frustrated with the media. He's frustrated with the way the Laundries are being hassled, I guess, if you will. People are protesting outside their house. People have the right to protest outside their house. He doesn't like it. I understand why. These are his family friends. I get it. But he has said a lot, and we'll talk about his statements. Yeah, we'll talk about his statements in a minute. Let's get back to what TMZ reported. Based on the lawyer, the autopsy was complete. Look, I have been to more autopsies than I would care to be at. Um, most of the things that the autopsies deal with involve tissues that aren't present in this case. So most of the things that take time, that are tested and take time to come back, are not present in this case because these remains were underwater and because it is simply skeletal. And that's why this autopsy came back so much faster than others. Autopsies are not pleasant. Anyone who has witnessed one or done them, it's a whole thing. So no cause of death, no manner of death identified. Bones are going to an anthropologist to see. Brian's autopsy has been completed without answers, and now his bones will be shipped off to an anthropologist for further evaluation. An anthropologist might be able to give information on how long the bones were, or the body was underwater in that condition. So to be able to give that, Gustav in the chat asked, are there poisonous snakes in those swamps? There are numerous types of poisonous snakes in those swamps in Florida, and gators. There is lots of nature in those swamps, and lots of aggressive nature. So I think there are 3 or 4 types of poisonous snakes in that area, including copperheads and water moccasins and things like that. So this was definitely a lot. The Floridians in the chat can lend their expertise of that. That there's everything in there, and we will get into it. I know there are questions about whether this could have been a suicide, whether if it was, then a weapon would have been recovered. Yes, Ring Shadows Cat reminded me, venomous, not poisonous. Yes, because poisonous is if you eat it. My 13-year-old would be horrified with me getting that wrong. I get it wrong. But yes, venomous snakes, because they have venom, not, poisonous to the eating. Thank you. Either way, you know what I mean, or the question asker means. So with that, there will be questions about whether this was a suicide, potentially a homicide, which seems unlikely, or animals, also possible. I don't know if he went to this environmental park overestimating his survival ability in the Florida swamps, which are going to be different than the Appalachian Trail, or Utah and other places, or if he went out there to be isolated and alone. I don't know. The area where his items and his remains were found, the fact that his items and remains were found together indicated to me that these were probably not washed down from another place as water was receding, because the likelihood of things being intact and items being near remains is different to me. I think it's more likely that water receded into the ground and was not flowing. That's just my speculation based on, life lived experience. But the autopsy yielded no results, essentially, because it was just bones, which means they probably weighed them and filled out the information, and then that was it. What else do they say? The attorney tells us he's not sure why the anthropologist is getting involved. I can expand on that. My speculation is that an anthropologist will be able to take a look at the remains and determine roughly how long they were in water, and maybe give us a rough estimate of date of death, or if there are any markings of, I don't know, teeth marks or anything like that, and maybe give some information about what happened. Again, if this is so grim to talk about, but if this was something more like a gunshot suicide, they would have found, or likely found, a weapon, and they would likely be able to tell, or at least suspect, that from the bones, but you never know. So what is been reported is that the notebook was found in the waterproof dry bag, though it was wet. Brian Enton has been tweeting about this. His reporting on this, I mean, I don't know how much Brian Enton has slept, and hopefully he has a day or two off. He has been so on top of covering this case. He has been outside of the Laundries. It has just been so interesting. So we're just going to go to his Twitter real quick as we talk about this a little bit more. But there's some new tweets here that I didn't see earlier. But I wanted to share what he had said about Northport Police. And if you guys aren't following Brian Enton, I mean, it seems like, there's hundreds of thousands of people doing it, but he will continue to cover this because this is not the end of the investigation. So just interviewed Northport Police. Headlines: notebook, but they believe is salvageable. They think it is purely coincidence that the Laundries found Brian's personal items at the reserve. Police never followed Brian in the Mustang when he went to the reserve. More soon on News Nation. Also, they were disputing Laundrie attorney Steve Bertolino's timeline about when he told police Brian was missing. That will be interesting to learn more about whether that will be interesting to learn more about, and I'm sure more will come. Look, the investigation into the death of Gabby Petito is ongoing, but the missing person investigation into Brian Laundrie is now done. So some of those police reports will start to come forward later. It will take some time, but later, maybe the FBI will come out with more information in the Gabby Petito investigation and we'll know if they close that investigation. They will share what their suspicions are or were. He still has not been named a person or a suspect in that. He has only been named a person of interest. But there is new information here. He talks about his interview with Northport Police this evening on News Nation tonight. He always links those on his Twitter. So if you want to see his interview with Northport Police, I've seen clips of it before I went live, and it was very interesting. Northport Police talked to me about the cameras. They say there are other cameras that went up sooner before Brian disappeared. Let me see if I can get this on sound because the video is actually playing because Katya told me how to reset my computer, and maybe we can actually hear what Brian has to say. This is like a 30-second clip, a 54-second clip. So let's talk about this. And let me see if I can share the screen with sound so that we can just talk about it together. I haven't seen this yet, so I'm actually really just curious. And I want to hear what it says. I want to hear what it says. So this should be shared with sound. It says, one of the things I held off on reporting, but now will because Brian Laundrie is confirmed dead. Police installed hidden cameras around the house, including this camera in the neighbor's yard behind the house. This particular camera was installed after Brian went missing. Northport Police today talked to me about the cameras. They say there are other cameras that went up sooner before Brian disappeared. So there is going to be more evidence on a timeline. I'll get to why that matters so much to me in just a moment. Let's see what is said. If there's any sound, I don't hear any sound at all. I don't hear any sound. So if you don't hear any sound, that's why. But these are cameras that are installed around the property. Ooh, there's some sound. Let's see if there are others. That's going to be probably where the recording goes so that it's a recording box that's locked so that police can recover that recording knowing that it hasn't been tampered with or altered. So that's why it's locked. Those look very much like the ones outside of commercial buildings. So, okay. So they put up cameras, some after Brian went missing and some before Brian went missing, which means to me, they were sus and they have questions. Also, if someone up before, if they want to do an investigation into the Laundrie parents, this might give them evidence that conflicts possibly with things that they told law enforcement. Now, let me see if I had any other notes that I wanted to get into before I get into this, because this is speculative. They're conflicting the Stephen Bartolino timeline, which doesn't surprise me. The Stephen Bartolino has said things like, Brian Laundrie's father was trying to keep him from leaving the house that day because he knew his son was upset and grieving. Well, those kinds of statements are very interesting. The notes I have just from the quick clip that Brian Enton shared of the Northport police is that they were keeping an eye on Brian, but they did not know when he left the house to go to the reserve or to the environmental park because they weren't there at that point in the case. They were not like staked out outside the house. He was at that point not named as a suspect in the case. He was named as a person of interest. He had not been charged yet with using Gabby Petito's debit card or credit card to withdraw funds. So, with regard to the cameras, if the parents, and we know the parents have not talked to law enforcement much, but they have had interactions with law enforcement, you are not required to tell law enforcement anything. I'm sorry, I have cat hair. You are not required to tell law enforcement anything. But what you can't do is mislead them. If you do tell them something, that's where we can come into the obstruction realm and conversation if law enforcement was actively misled. So the cameras and any conflicting statements can be investigated. We will see how that shakes out. Silence is not going to be obstructing justice, but active misleading can be. From the Bertolino statements, it seems that he takes ownership of telling the Laundries not to speak to anyone. So we will see what happens in that investigation. I have a lot of questions. I have questions about the timing of the park. I have questions about cat hair. I have questions about why they said the other park where the entrance is 16 miles away from this one. I have questions about why the attorney said they knew Brian was grieving. Okay, so did Brian tell them what happened with Gabby? Because even though he is not a suspect and he is deceased at this point, but he is innocent until proven guilty, that is the law of the land. But the things that are sus are that they were together. He seems to be the last one that saw her alive. She was killed by strangulation. That's not an accident. He had her van and he had her debit card. So her murder is still being investigated, and the FBI in their press conference at the environmental park called it a murder for the first time. It's been ruled a homicide, which is just death at the hands of another, but they said the murder investigation is still going. So if they ever come out with things that said, hey, or say, hey, our suspect is Brian Laundrie and he is now deceased, we are closing this case, then we will know. We also heard the coroner in Wyoming say that the Gabby Petito murder was domestic violence related and that it was not that uncommon in a domestic violence killing, which also indicates to me that the coroner had their suspicions, though they're not the ones who are proving it, but had their suspicions of what happened in this case too. So there are lots of suspicions, but he has still not been named a suspect, and that investigation is still open, which we will see. I imagine that we will get information from the FBI at some point. I don't know at what point that will be. This closes the search for Brian Laundrie. It will close the indictment for him. You're not going to prosecute the deceased with regard to the use of her debit card, so that will be closed. There's a lot that doesn't add up. There are a lot of questions left about what the parents knew, about what the parents did, about if the parents helped him, and about at what point they helped him. And it's not going to, for me, fall into like the aiding and abetting after the fact and things like that yet, because he's not going to be prosecuted for anything at this point because I can't. And we just don't know. But if they did mislead police, obstruction might be the thing. We're going to talk real quick about the new attorneys in the Brittany case, and then we're an hour and 15 minutes in, and then I'm just going to answer as many questions as I can. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories with regard to the Laundries and with regard to whether evidence was placed. That's been answered by Northport Police. That's been answered by others. They went in with law enforcement. They weren't planting anything. They said they think it was coincidental. The water has finally receded and they saw something. They were out there looking for things that were their sons. They knew what their son's possessions were and found the dry bag, and then law enforcement found the remains. I don't wish that on any parent in the world, that they locate the bones of their child. I mean, it's a horrific thing. What the Petitos are going through is horrific. And the Petitos, hearing Attorney Bertolino's statements, if I was the Petito family, I'd be like, oh, cool. So you knew. Well, we were hunting for her. Well, we were looking for her. Well, we went to bed night after night after night and did not know what happened to our daughter. You knew that your son was grieving. All right. All right, then. Man, this case is it's tragic. And it just is. So I will answer questions. We're going to talk about Dad Spears real quick and the fact that Vivian Thuren is out and new lawyers are in. And it's not really a palate cleanser because the whole Britney Spears conservatorship is also sad and that fight's ongoing, but it's not this dark. I mean, it's dark, but it's not quite this dark. Is that a mild silver lining? No, it's still pretty dark. All right. I accidentally closed out the wrong notes. So I'm going to timestamp and we're going to move on. And then all the questions, because this case has a lot of them. I should note, I'm also going to do a more thorough breakdown for the Emily show with regard to the remains of Brian Laundrie, kind of in a more structured way. Once, I asked on Patreon a bunch of questions. I'm going to get to some of those tonight too. I asked what the questions that the Patreons had were. I will get to those. I will get to yours. And then I'm going to kind of go through those different things in a more succinct way and in a less chatty way, because that's what the Emily show is for. It's for me to be more succinct and less chitty chat. But that's what we're all here for. And that's why there's timestamps. Because we're here for the chitty chat and Emily closing out the notes that she needs. But that's all right, because we're professionals here, and that's what happened. That's just what happens. Let's talk about Dad Spears getting yeeted. Now, quick reminder, Dad Spears has been terminated as suspended pending termination as Britney's conservator of the estate. Yay. Dad Spears had two different law firms working with him. Both are still fighting over this 12th accounting for fees, but both have filed notices of substitution of attorney. So there is a quick write-up on this in Law 360 that we're going to go over, and then I'll just show you the motions real quick so we know what we're all talking about, and then we'll just move back on. We'll just move back on to questions. So, and to the almost 6,000 of you here, go ahead and like and subscribe and do the YouTube things. Let's just continue. Let's just continue. I'm like, should we go for whiskey or should we go for water? Water now, whiskey next. All right. James Spears has hired Wilkie, which is the law firm, Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, partner Alex Weddington to replace Vivian Thuren of Holland and Knight and Geraldine Weil of Freeman, and Smiley, according to filings in Los Angeles Superior Court earlier this week that we're going to pull up. The Los Angeles judge suspended James Spears from serving as conservator of his daughter's estate last month, saying it is clear the arrangement is no longer in her best interest, following a hearing in which her attorney claimed that he was cruel, toxic, and abusive. We stand the use of the word toxic repeatedly by Rosengart. Judge Penny appointed John Zabel, a CPA, as the temporary conservator until December 31st. This change the court finds is in the best interest of the conservatee. That's all the court had to find. That was the minimum finding. What's in the best interest of Britney? Her father petitioned the court for full termination of the conservatorship immediately after revising a longstanding stance that the arrangement was in the best interest of his daughter. During the September hearing, Rosengart argued for a suspension of the conservatorship. We already covered all of that. Rosengart wants the files. He wants to go digging, Thuren said, arguing that a suspension was not in the best interest of Britney Spears. He wants the files. That's the reason for the delay. That's the reason that Rosengart didn't immediately want the termination of the conservatorship because, yes, he wants to go digging, and it is Brittany's right to say, I want my attorney to look into what has been happening over the last 13 years and what Dad Spears has been up to. She told the court on June 23rd, I think they should be in jail. That's what she said in court. So, of course, he wants the files. And by having a temporary subsequent conservator, the attorney client privilege does not protect what happened between James Spears and his lawyers, and all of those files get turned over. So, yes, they can go digging. We know they're investigating. We know they want to depose James Spears, and they're going to want to depose these attorneys too, which might put them on opposite sides. So, it is completely I don't want to say appropriate. It's not surprising to me that he went with new counsel. Also, he now has to pay for his counsel. So it doesn't surprise me that he went from two law firms, well, four law firms, because they're the family law firms, but he went from two law firms that were working with him personally down to one lawyer at one firm. That surprises me none at all. The attorney who recently joined Wilkie as a partner is a trial lawyer representing clients in entertainment. So he brought in a litigator to kind of match toe for toe with Rosengart, I'm sure, because he does entertainment, probate, and business litigation. He has gone to bat for a slew of celebrities in high-profile cases, including Selena Gomez, in a row against creators of a fashion app who used her likeness without her consent. He also helped Brooke Shields go after a number of cosmetic company retailers that allege go after a number of major cosmetic companies and retailers that she alleged tried to capitalize on her iconic eyebrows with a manufacturer and sale of an eyebrow pencil with a shade called Brooke S. Oh, what's that sound like? Oh, I don't know. The Anna shade of lipstick that Jeffree Star got sued over selling, and they settled out of court. But the Brooke S, I had no idea there were eyebrow litigations. We need an eyebrow litigation day. We need we're just going to stop with all of the recent news and go over our copyright of tattoos and litigation over makeup, because we just need a minute. We all need a palate cleanser. This attorney also helped Snoop Dogg sue Pabst Colt 45 over an endorsement deal, which he said entitled him to a cut of the beer maker's $70 million sale to TSG in a joint venture. Well, I want to know what happened with that too. I'm very curious about Snoop Dogg versus Pabst. I want to know about all of these. I want to know about everything that was just listed. I have so many questions. I want to know about Snoop Dogg suing over beer, and I want to know about Brooke Shields and her iconic eyebrows. We need all of that. We need that. We're going to have to just do a Q&A about something, not all of the heavy shit we've been covering. The drama is not fluffy and fun right now. The lawsuit stuff is so heavy. I want to know about Snoop Doggy Dogg. Snoop Doggy Dogg. Well, I'll have to drink Pabst. I'll let you know. I will give you a heads up when we're doing the Snoop Dogg Pabst Colt 45 so you all can be adequately prepared, because I feel like preparations are needed so we can talk about Snoop. And those of you that don't like beer and live where it's legal, you can just enjoy other Snoop products. So let's go to these motions. I almost forgot. There's another Britney motion that I wanted to talk about that law nerds who have been around for a minute, live or not, might have seen this particular person. There's a new filing. I'm getting ahead of myself. Shit. Okay. We're going to do these two real quick because they're boring. Well, they're just substitution of counsel. And then we're going to do the one I forgot because we need a minute. Because we need a minute. Where is it? I completely forgot to pull it up. Where is it? I think it's here. No, it's here. All right. Yay. I remembered. Okay. And I just got excited. Did you see it? You saw it all happen on my face. All right. Let's go. Substitution of counsel. Substitution of attorney. Me attorney, Geraldine Wild, is going to be this attorney, Wilkie Farr and Gallagher. Yay. And they signed it. and then everybody got notice. Same thing. But it's kind of nice to see, why is this looking like this? What is happening? Why? Why did you do that? Thank you. Thank you for getting your shit together, computer. Substitution of attorney. Vivian Thuren from Holland and Knight. Goodbye, Vivian. Cheers. Cheers to Vivian and her billable rate of like $1,500 or $1,600 an hour. Cheers. And welcome, Alex, to the circus. I don't know. Ugh. His bar number is definitely lower than mine, which means he's been practicing longer than I have. I'm not surprised by that because he's a partner at Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, and not a name partner at that. I was going to say Wennington and Wilkie, not the same. So yay, welcome. We look forward to seeing what happens next. Okay, guys, substitution of attorneys. Bye-bye, Viv. Cheers. Uh-oh. Did I just make I hope I didn't make my camera just focus on my whiskey and not on me. All right, we're back. Cheers. Let us get to the last motion we're going to talk about tonight. Let me go. Where did it go? Do y'all remember that there was a petition to terminate the conservatorship of Britney Jean Spears from Stan the Stan? Stan the Stan has filed a notice of hearing. Yep, Stan filed again. Hey, Stan, welcome back to the big show. So Stan is back. Vivian has been yeeted, and Stan the Stan is back. He wants his petition to terminate heard the same day as James Spears's petition to terminate. So Stan is back. Stan is back for sure. So here's Stan Wontok. Stan filed a notice of hearing to terminate the conservatorship. Notice is hereby given that on November 11th, under Judge, look, Stan, not legal advice, capitalize the word judge. They get salty about shit. Stan, they get salty. But Stan is giving notice that Stan's petition, Stan.Wontok, Stan wants his petition heard. Stan does. Look, James Spears's petition is on for the same day. So Stan, I think if James Spears's petition to terminate is granted, I think Stan is going to claim victory because Stan has now given notice that his petition to terminate, because I don't think the court's ever ruled that he doesn't have standing to bring it, because Stan the Stan does not have standing, but I don't think the judge ever ruled that Stan the Stan does not have standing. I think Stan has just slipped in his motion to terminate and nothing's ever happened. So I feel like Stan is going to be like, hey, Stan, my shirt is just giving me the business. I think that Stan is going to be like, look, I'm going to give notice for my motion the same day as James Spears's motion to terminate. And if I give notice, then if the, conservatorship is terminated on the motion to terminate, I'm going to say it's my motion. So I think Stan is setting himself up for a win. I think Stan is ready for it. I don't think the court's going to even rule that Stan doesn't have standing, but they should. The motion is on calendar. So Stan filed at the filing window, gave notice of hearing, and is trying to calendar his motion. I don't know if Stan is trying to calendar it because he wants to have a reason to come to court. But Stan has filed notice and is trying to serve everybody. So, yep. Stan wants to be heard. Stan wants his motion to be heard. Stan is ready for this moment. He is taking his moment, and that is it. Stan, you don't have standing, friend. I'm sorry, but you don't. But I appreciate putting your motion on the same date so you can claim the L. Or the W. I mean, it's an L, but he's got to claim it. You know what I mean. We should just get to questions. Y'all are like, okay, we're done. We have so many questions. And I know you have so many questions, and they are probably mostly about uh Brian Laundrie and Alec Baldwin. I get it. But you guys, I think we're mostly done with Vivian Thuren. Like, no new motions. They're still gonna fight over the old shit though. The 12th accounting's not done, and her payment is connected to that. So we're not all the way done yet. Like, we're not. But we're getting closer. We're getting closer. And that's a good thing. Okay. Questions. Let me just close out a few things so my stream doesn't lag and make sure I can see the super chats that I may have missed. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All of you are like, who is Stan? Stan is a Britney Spears fan, or Stan, named Stan, who filed a motion to terminate, though he doesn't have standing. But it's like, if his motion's on calendar, then he can say, my motion's on calendar, so I need to be at the hearing. So we'll see. All right, let us pull those up. I have to find them. All right. Amy Yo said, let's all take a drink because the week is over. Girl, I feel that in my soul. I actually was out for a very lovely dinner last night in downtown Nashville with my friend April, and we had the nicest time. I had a lovely Manhattan followed by a chocolate martini. I know that doesn't sound like a good plan, but they were spaced apart with a really lovely dinner at a steakhouse that I had not been to before. I have a friend coming into town tomorrow. It's just going to be busy. And then I leave for a conference, well, April's conference. Then I leave for her conference. And it's just like, things are exciting. Okay, Rachel, question. Can you explain to us Parent-Child Privilege Act of 2003 and how it relates to, if at all, to Brian Laundrie's parents and what he may or may not have said to them in a private conversation? Well, they can't be forced to divulge anything unless there is legal process, but legal process is not going to protect them because he is an adult. And right now there is no legal process. So if there is legal process, they cannot say, I can't answer that because of privilege. Like if somebody called me to testify against my husband, I can just claim privilege. Like in some cases, you can claim the Fifth Amendment. And if a lot of things will probably be covered by the Fifth Amendment with regard to the Landries, if they knew things that they are worried they could be prosecuted for. There doesn't have to be a pending prosecution necessarily for you to plead the Fifth if there can be a pending prosecution. So I don't think the child parent privilege is going to fly because he is an adult. He is not a child. He is their child, but he is not a minor. So that. And they can't be compelled to say anything unless there is legal cause to compel them. If there is legal cause to compel them, then they're probably going to have a pretty solid reason to plead the Fifth, in which case they can't be made to say anything. If there is a civil wrongful death suit, how does that play out? It doesn't, because the wrongful death suit would be against Brian, and Brian is deceased. Unless there is someone else. Look, if there is someone else, that investigation is still ongoing. There could still be somebody else. So there could be a wrongful death suit against somebody else. But if it is determined that the only suspect in the murder of Gabby Petito is Brian Laundrie, then he is an adult and they can't sue the parents for wrongful death either. I hope that answered that. I think it might, but I hope that it does. All right, let me see if there are any. I'm going to try to get to the ones that I missed and not scroll too far. I didn't swoop for questions. I have questions. You have questions. I should swoop. It's been a week. Swoop. It's been a week. CJ said for the whiskey fund, hubby poured us an Old Smoky because he's got to keep up with Emily. Emily only does one tonight with a very big ice cube. This is Old Smoky salted caramel. We love it. Snoop's wine is not bad. Snoop's wine is not bad at all. I don't drink a ton of wine these days, but Snoop's wine is not bad. And I'm glad that the chat is talking about these delicious. Look, here's my issue with Trader Joe's right now. If you want a peek into the world of Emily, I have never tried the black and white half moon cookies at Trader Joe's. And then I did. And now they're sold out and I don't have any more. These are the problems that I am struggling with this week. I was like, but I really want some more cookies. Nope. None. Petition for Petition to being called Dad Spears, Bad Spears instead, because that man is not a father, but also easy to remember. I mean, I appreciate the motion. We might have to put it to a vote. In my brain, I just keep calling him Dad Spears. But yes, he is genetically a father, but no, I don't think he has been a good father. He is genetically dad, but I get it. Absolutely, for sure. I'm going to try to get to a few more and then I will go into the history. Chrissy D said, I think I need some Di Serono to make the night a bit sweeter after such heavy stuff. It is heavy stuff. And it's, look, I like to kind of take the piss out of filings and I like to kind of make light and make fun of things. There is nothing to make fun of in 99% of what we covered tonight because it's just so heavy and it's just so heavy. Kristen said, I have such a suspicious mind, but there were for sure enough bones that he is really dead and not just a few teeth. Sorry, gross question. Dental record matching does not go with just a few teeth. They recovered a partial skull. So one is not going to survive without that. It is not as if they like Peter Pettigrewed a finger and then we're like, oh, there was nothing left of him but a pinky. They say partial remains. I am with the area, I imagine that that is a consideration for water and wildlife, that it is partial. There might be a hand, an arm, a leg, a foot missing. It is not a full and complete skeleton. And if it is anything less than full and complete, it is partial. They did not recover all of its skull. There are multiple bones in the skull, but there was enough for dental records. A few teeth is not going to be enough for dental records. I know way too much about this, but you generally need most of the, maxillaries so that you can orient the teeth to identify someone by dental records. I know they will follow that up with DNA as well, but the dental records are generally pretty good. And if he is from Florida, he probably had easily accessible dental records, and that went to the top of the line. So that's what it is. Amy, if Brian murdered Gabby and confessed to his parents, what are the parents' legal obligations to reveal that information, if any? They're not obligated to reveal that information. I mean, now that he is gone, they might choose to, but they're not obligated to. They are obligated to not lie to law enforcement. They are not obligated to talk to law enforcement. They cannot mislead, but they can withhold information. I know it sucks. But you can't legally force people to talk in the US. That's not how our system works. I get it, but it is that, though, look, them's the rules. The Fifth Amendment is part of our Constitution. When you study the history of why our law is the way it is, I agree with the way our law is. I agree with the right against self-incrimination. I agree with not being able to force people to talk. I have seen people on Twitter that wanted the Laundrie's front door kicked in by police and have them dragged out of their home and interrogated. But that's not legally possible, even though it's frustrating. So morally and ethically, they have to live with their decisions. If they misled law enforcement, that is and can be a different situation. So I appreciate the question, Amy. It's good to see you in the chat, as always. I am going to get to the back end so that I can get to the other super chats real quick. Jade Lady Mary said, please do a collab with fellow attorney that surprise witness about Brittany. Lou Taylor went after her over Brittany and her job. I will reach out to her. The times I've done collabs on the channel, I'm going to be perfectly honest, y'all don't watch them as much. I'm just saying. So when the law nerds speak, I'm like, oh, collab episodes definitely don't get as much viewing. But I will absolutely, I will reach out and talk to her about it. I know she has videos coming out about Lou Taylor. Let's see. I'm going to try to get to some of the super chats from earlier on in the stream. Jennifer H said, Emily, caterpillar cakes have a long expiry date. Please let me send you one. Would be so fun to show. Hi from the UK with tea and White Claw. Is it sweet tea White Claw, or do the two go together in a way I don't know about? But thank you, Jennifer H. And my address information is down below. If you ever want to send anything, you are welcome to. If it is food, just let me know it's coming. Livy B said, "Thank you for inspiring me to go into law. You're welcome. I'm currently studying pre-law in college and I love your content so much. Thank you for being you. You are welcome." Ashley Vincent, "Thank you for the catnip tip. Oh my God, Fred plays catch." When he feels like it. He's like, he wore himself out though. So now he's back to sleep because kitten. Kaylin said, "Catnip tip, give the paw nerds kisses for me." Absolutely, I will. Jam Jam said, "Got an AP update that says an assistant director handed him the prop gun and told him it was safe to use, didn't realize it was loaded." I mean, they said on set that the gun was cold. I absolutely don't think Alec Baldwin knew that the gun had anything in it at all, even if they were using blanks for scenes. I don't think he knew at all, and it's sad. Norma said Tyler Mills posted a thread on Facebook days earlier where the crew was complaining. There is a video of Alec Baldwin supporting I at Sea. Cool. Thank you. Hannah M said donation for Fred for more toys. I mean, cats, you buy them toys and they want to play with the box. They're like toddlers. Amy Yo said, "Just saw from Brian and the notebook is dried out and is salvageable. Maybe there's some answers." I hope so. I'll talk about my thoughts on kind of justice in a moment. I didn't really get into that when we talked about Brian, but I will in just a second. Beth said, "I'm definitely not well versed in law, but I love following you because you put the legal stuff into relative layman's terms and I appreciate it. I try." Karen, thank you for the donation to Fred. He will love it. Um, Theater Nerd said, "Oh my God, DEF CON Reddit intro is awesome. Great job, Tech Valor." I know, Tech's awesome. Belly said, "If the lawyers known them for so long, wouldn't it be a conflict of interest?" Belly, I completely understand the thought and feeling. He has been acting as a family spokesperson. So if this ever went further, if Brian Laundrie was prosecuted for the federal use of the access device, I don't think this attorney would have been representing. I think he was running point to try to liaise between his family, friends, and the media because he is a lawyer. This is something that I don't know if he has done much in his career. He is clearly frustrated. This was probably went a different way than he thought that it would and was probably very frustrating for him too. But would it be a conflict? Not necessarily. You could represent people, it's not the same as it is in the medical profession because he's representing them and he knows them. So hopefully that helps. The doesn't have a standing. I mean, we don't have a standing. We don't. The stand does not have standing. True. Christy, have you considered looking into the case like Jennings 8? It's truly horrifying. I do not. I have not. I really do try to not do a ton of true crime stuff. Because of my personal experience with it, I try to only cover stuff when I think, or I get asked a lot that my perspective as a prosecutor might be somewhat helpful to shed a light on what is going on or to explain the way the law is working. And that is when I choose to step in and kind of offer some thoughts on things. But true crime, especially on like breaking stuff, is hard for me to cover. I've shared on the channel and I try not to talk about too much because this story is not about me at all. But one of the reasons it's hard for me to cover is not only have I sat across from countless victims' family, and when we talk about justice, and I've seen this a lot on social media, like we didn't want Brian Laundrie to be dead. I don't know why Laundrie is stuck in my head tonight. I apologize. We don't want Brian Laundrie to be dead. We wanted there to be justice. We wanted there to be a trial. I mean, with the amount of families that I've talked to and that we've gone through the court process on trial or to plea, it doesn't always feel any different. I mean, it doesn't feel different to them afterwards. They get a conviction, but not a lot changes. It doesn't always answer the questions they want answered. Defendants generally don't testify and say, "I did this for this reason and this is what happened." Criminal trials are, I don't want to say they're heartless, but they are clinical. They are cold. Not going through a trial means that the Petitos don't have to sit in court while the autopsy photos of their daughter are shown to a jury. They don't have to sit there and listen to all the details of the injuries that she may have suffered that led them to determine that it was a strangulation. They don't have to worry about whether one person on a jury will hang and whether that trial will go forward 2 or 3 or more times. They don't have to worry about whether an appeal or a violation of rights could release him from jail down the road. They they might not have all the answers, but even if there was a trial, they might still not have all the answers, and they get to start now with trying to figure out what it looks like to heal versus having this continue to be dragged out. And you see that with high profile trials. Everything that happens in trial is dissected and pulled apart and looked at, and it people are curious and fascinated, but it might be better for their family to not have to relive that and to not have to relive all of that information coming forward in that way. It's an answer and it's an ending. Not the one everybody wants, but I don't know what more there is. I don't know what a trial gets you that's different other than a judge and jury maybe saying, yes, this is the person who did this. I think they probably have a strong suspicion in their hearts and minds about what happened and about who did it. And I don't know if they need a jury to answer that for them, if that makes sense. And I don't know if a jury verdict changes how they move on. And certainly, I don't think a jury would, I mean, it doesn't compel someone to testify unless they testify and say it wasn't me. Um and that's hard too. So I don't know. There's a finality to it when a person who may be a suspect in the case is deceased. But again, the investigation into the murder of Gabby Petito is still ongoing for now. And if the investigation closes and we have more information, we'll talk about it again then. So hopefully that helps. I don't apologize for the tangent. It's just it does bring back a lot of those conversations, and a lot of those feelings as a prosecutor of never being able to make it right, because even a conviction doesn't bring somebody back, and it puts criminal trials, particularly homicide trials, they put the family and friends through a lot. And I have had 2 people close to me that have been killed. Both of their killers are in prison. One was a plea, one was a trial. Um, it's a lot easier when there's a plea and you don't have to go through the ups and downs of a jury trial, just from that side of it, from personal experience and from observation from work experience. So, Mariko says, assuming we cannot be sued, we vote yes to bad Spears. All right. Biological donor Spears, bad Spears, sperm donor Spears. I think I would misspeak if I had to do SPD, SPS, SDS, sperm donor Spears. I think I would misspeak this, but people are voting. Oh, hello, George. Don't wake up your brother. Don't go wake up your brother. George, don't go wake up your brother. That's why there's an ottoman for you. Yeah, you come second. You don't get to lay on the blanket. Sorry, big guy. This is the way that is. All right, bad Spears. I will try to remember bad Spears. It's just, we'll have to make it an acronym for something. Question, what does Bad Spears still need an attorney for? Well, we know that Rosengart's investigating him, and there are still things that are going to have to be wrapped up in court, and he is still going to get investigated. They want to depose him. They want to do discovery with him. There's lots that they want to do. So yes, he still needs lawyers. But they are just, most of it is they are letting the court know, hey, we don't need service of what comes next. We're done here. Like, we've stopped our employment with Bad Spears and we are moving forward. So that's what it is. Gustav asked, what do you think about the speed of Tom's dementia declaration and conservatorship? Shouldn't any judges Tom gave money to be recused? Judges that Tom gave money to should disclose that, and there should be a conversation, and whether they choose to recuse themselves, but also the attorneys can choose to paper them or not appear in front of them. So yes, possibly. I don't know. I am not a medical expert. I do not have a lot of personal experience with dementia. So I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know if it was speed, if it was readily apparent that it happened before. I just don't have enough information to know. The timing all seems suspicious, but we don't know. Nathan says, wait, did Dad Spears' monthly income stop? Yes. There's no monthly income if you're no longer the conservator of the estate. The estate does not need to pay you. So yes. Lainey says dental matches are wild. They usually have the palette too. Yes. Very creepy to see out of context someone's face. Yes. Welcome, Caffeinated Cupid. Why are they sending him to an anthropologist? So they are sending him to someone who can get more information from the bones and someone who studies bones. And there are anthropologists that work in this area. I think speculation. I think they are going to try to, because they only have bones and not tissue, try to narrow down a relative time of death, or at least a estimate of time of death. So I think that's what they're going to try to narrow down. So that's why. I think they still have questions. Someone had field or trail cameras with some huge panthers on it weeks before. I mean, I'm not surprised by anything that's in that wilderness preserve. It seems, I mean, we know Florida's wild, like wild, like wild, wild. But Florida has quite a lot of predators that animal predators that are dangerous. And I wonder if Laundrie overestimated his skill level in going into that preserve, or tried to stay overnight, or just got too close to the water. I don't know. We will see. Can his parents be sued for inflicting emotional damage? I don't think there's enough information. I don't think they didn't actively do things. They withheld things. So intentional infliction of emotional distress or negligent infliction of emotional distress. On the information we have now, I don't think that would fly. If more information comes forward, I reserve the right to change my mind with all things. Thoughts on the show You on Netflix? I haven't watched it. I watched the newest season right before they found Brian Laundrie's body, and now all I can think of is that he faked his own death. I don't think on a dental records match that he faked his own death. I don't. All the facts point to he went out into the wilderness and died and was kind of hidden by Mother Nature with regard to the water. I don't know if that was planned. I don't know if he looked at the weather. I don't know what his parents do. Maybe the notebook will give some answers. Maybe we'll have more answers later. I know there are lots of theories on it. The facts seem pretty clear to me that he went out into the wilderness. I don't know if he overestimated his abilities and went out there trying to hide out until maybe things died down and then like scoot out of the country, or if he went out there because he was unable to continue on with the things that he may have done. I don't know. And I don't know if we will know. So, question for a slightly lighter case. Can we do more about Elizabeth Holmes? I mean, a little bit lighter, but not much. I have been following along with her trial, and it will soon be time for a check back in with her trial. It's very interesting because they've had a number of jurors pop out of that trial. So they are going to, this trial is going to go through December. So yes, we will circle back around to it, but it's going to be a while before we have answers. Question, do you think Britt will ever be free? I do think she will be free. We will see. Natalie's World said, so are my dental records public info? No, they aren't. Do they need to seek out the dentist and request them? Yes, they do. And generally need a warrant to get them. And he was an adult, so it's not like his parents can just release them. But there were times when law enforcement went to the Laundrie's house to get items to compare DNA and to get other items. So they might have known where his dentist was and be able to do that. I think they probably expedited at least the H with how they matched it so quickly. I think it was expedited. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting that information till Friday, optimistically Monday, but it might have also been quite obvious based, I don't know the nature of the man's teeth, but it might have been quite obvious based on his teeth. So question, what happens if someone hasn't been to the dentist for many years? Will they still be able to use dental records to identify it? I hate to say it depends, but it depends on what information they have. So sometimes, but it depends. And again, I am not a dental match expert. I know about it vaguely and generally. I have never had a case dealing with dental match because generally by the time people are dental matched, it's not something that I am prosecuting. But it just depends. Some people's teeth have, uniqueness and anomalies that don't change over time. So, yes, I'm going to keep going on with questions. What what all potential legal suits, if any, could the Petito Smith family files against the Laundrie family? I mean, against his family, you can't really do a wrongful death unless there is some way that they participated in it, and there is nothing that alludes to that in this case at this point. So based on this information, I don't see anything based on the information we have. If there is other information that comes out, that may change. If they obstructed police, that may change, but that could be more criminal than civil. If of course, if Brian we don't know who killed Gabby Petito at this point, though we all have our suspicions. You've heard mine, but we just don't know. And the FBI has not stated, they haven't closed that case. They haven't named him as a suspect or the primary suspect. So we just don't know. I think in when we have more information, we'll be able to evaluate that again. But right now, ugh, I just don't see any kind of path for that. Um, and I don't even know what good it would really do. Money is not gonna change anything, right? So, yeah, that. Um, Yami J said, question, is it normal that after a month that we find only skeletal remains? I know the area could make this possible, but I find it hard to understand. The area is what makes that possible. So there are animals in the area and water speeds decomposition. There are water cremations where you use water to break down an entire body. So water has tremendous power. So it's not shocking to me that with the water that's been reported and the fact that this was reported to be underwater till recently, that is what's found. That does not shock or surprise me. And from all of the reports I've read from other forensic experts, of which I am not one, I am a girl with some experience with some things, but all of the forensic experts that I've seen comment on this have all said generally the same thing. The biggest question has been, why didn't the cadaver dogs notice it? I don't know when or if specifically cadaver dogs were in that area, but that has really been the biggest speculation, is why wasn't that picked up on in earlier searches? And the water shouldn't have affected that as much. So, um, let's see. As a former dental professional, understand that no two people have the same type of tooth. A tooth is like a fingerprint or a snowflake. Dental verification is definitive. Thank you, Carla, an expert that I am not. I should have asked Dr. B. I will ask Dr. B before the podcast episode what his thoughts are, for sure. I should yell at him and make him come in. Question, if someone sees you in Nashville at a restaurant or walking around, do you want them to say hi or ignore you? You are always welcome to say hello. Always welcome to say, don't come to my house to say hello. But you are always welcome to say hello if you see me out and about. I run into Lawnards in the wild somewhat frequently these days, and I am always happy to say hello to you, talk about the cases that you love. So you are always welcome to come up and say hello. It does not weird me out. And I walk around with purple hair. I realize that once people hear me talk in public, I am somewhat identifiable. I'm always happy to say hi. So me and Peter Mon are the same that way. Say hi so I can say, oh my God, what's your favorite case that we're following right now? My hair is making me hot. Jinx said, now that we know that Laundrie is dead, do the charges against him for unauthorized use of the bank card stay open? No. Could his estate be held responsible? No. The criminal charges are done and that case will be closed. I have closed more than a few cases because the defendant is deceased. And it's like, oh, Okay, well, that's done. It just stops. The investigation with regard to Gabby doesn't stop, but any prosecution against him stops. His estate, if there is, I mean, he's a young man. He probably is intestate, meaning he doesn't, I imagine he doesn't have a will. And there probably isn't much of an estate. Gabby's van should go back to her. If he had a car, his family will deal with it. But they were living a van life. I can't imagine that there is much of an estate given his age. Um, so his family will deal with whatever that is. But no, his estate's not going to be responsible for those criminal charges. And I don't think there is much of an estate um to be had. So, question, am I wrong for hearing skull and assuming that there was no flesh on it? If so, has it really been long enough for that kind of decomposition? I think that I've answered that, but given generally no, given the environment and the water and the creatures, yes. Um, these are skeletal remains, so yes, it does not seem there was much, if any, tissue left, and that's why the autopsy went so fast. I talked about that a bit earlier. Autopsies largely deal with tissues and running tests on tissues and weighing tissues and organs and body parts and all those things. Um, and brains and stuff, but that's not the case when it's skeletal. Question, will you reveal the steakhouse? Yes, yes, I will. Um, thank you, Allie. I am always careful about accepting food in the mail. I appreciate that. Um, Gabby says, on a lighter note, I'm getting a puppy on November 1st. What should I name him? He's a Bernese Mountain Dog. Well, I name all my pets after Harry Potter characters, so I would pick a theme and go with it. That's why we have Fred and George. Where did George go? George bailed. I would pick something that you love and name them in that realm. That is what we've done, and I love it. We had a cat named Albus, and we have, George and Fred. Future animals will also stay in that same naming scheme. Is George a paw school dropout? George is a lion. He is just a free spirit. Fred is a loving house cat. George is a wild beast. He is he is definitely a feistier spirit, but he is also very much T's cat. Like, he lays on T's desk when T is doing work. He looks for T when he gets out of school. Like, he is very, very connected to my oldest. Debbie, I'm new. Are you a lawyer? I am a lawyer. Yeah, I've been a lawyer for the last like 15 years. I'm going to have to start changing that because the years keep changing. I'm going to just go over 15 years because 15 is such a round number until we get to 20, because it's weird to be like, oh, 16, 17. We're just going to go with it. But yes, I'm a former deputy district attorney for over 10 years, and I've been a licensed attorney for over 15 years. So yes, I am a lawyer. I am a YouTuber. I am a commentator. I am a sassy, sassy nerd that is enjoying her whiskey, and it is not done. I love that we're just going to do whiskey Q&A. Allie C, question. I feel like the public felt we were told everything. There just wasn't much to know. But now with the police cameras set up at Shay's Laundrie, I think there's a lot we don't know. Agree or not? Well, there's always a lot we don't know in ongoing investigations. There's a lot of information we don't have. I think we've been given a fair amount of information. And I think we've been given information that we can draw some conclusions from. But I think that law enforcement had reasons to put the cameras up, and they put them up on like neighbors' property, so they would have had permission from the neighbors. So there was a reason they did that, and there are things we don't know, which is why they did that. I don't know what they thought was hiding. I don't know if they thought that they would catch Brian trying to come back to his parents' house. I don't know what they were suspecting. We don't know what they were suspecting. So there is a lot that we don't know, and I would agree that there's a lot that we don't know. But I've just being on the other side of investigations and being the one sometimes making statements to the media, mostly in print. I didn't want to be on camera as a DA ever. And so most of those statements were released through emails or releases from the media relations division of my office. You really release the minimum necessary information about things when investigations are ongoing. So, Rachel, you're welcome. Fred Stan. We love the Fred Stans. I mean, Fred definitely digs me. So, it is. Erica said Bertolino owns a pool business, also has a CDL license. He seems to specialize in real estate law, and again, allegedly was business partners with Chris. I mean, he seems like a close friend of the family, so I'm not surprised by that. It seems like he was trying to help liaise between the two, and he definitely has been frustrated with I think with the public interest in this case, and then with the public criticism of the Laundrie parents. I understand the public criticism. I don't understand the protesting outside of their house, but I absolutely understand the public questioning and criticism of their actions. It doesn't look legality, morality. Legality, you don't have to say anything, but morality, a lot of people can't wrap their head around somebody who is living in your house, engaged to your child, goes missing, and you say nothing. And that's a fair criticism. So, a question. Bertolino said Brian was really upset and grieving. Some type of discussion happened, when he left the house, yet the parents are allowed him to drive to the reserve. Did they lie about not knowing anything? We don't know what they said to police, so we don't know if they lied. We don't know what information they gave police. We know that they waited to give police information. We also know that he's a 20-something-year-old. I don't know how, as a parent, you stop when a 20-year-old is going out of your house. I don't know how you stop them. I don't know how that works. Take the keys, make them walk. I don't know. And I'm sure that that's something that the Laundrie parents are going to question for quite a while going forward. So, yep. Ms. Zeppelin said, please stay with the entertainment law stories. Look, I love the entertainment law stories. I love pop culture. I love a fluffy copyright dispute and defamation and the tea of it all. It's just the stuff that has been in the commentary sphere of the world right now it has been a little bit dark. And there are times when I see things and I'm like, oh, the media's getting it wrong, or kind of the court of public opinion's getting it wrong. And sometimes I feel like the experience can help. I don't know if it helps. I feel like it might be able to help. Question, is it possible that the partial remains identified are not actually Brian Laundrie? I don't think so. And that this is all a grand conspiracy? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Not with dental remains. I'm sure they're going to also have DNA matches. I just don't think so. I just don't think so. I know that it happens on TV. It doesn't often happen in life. And with the dental records match, I just don't think that they would be capable of making that happen. And I don't think that they did. So, no question. Having salted caramel too. Thanks for the live. Cheers, Jennifer K. So I'm going to do a few more questions. Oh my goodness, it's over 2 hours. Thank you to the moderators for hanging in there. I know it's like, we do 2 hour streams ish. We do 2 hour streams ish. Farm Girl Night Runner, I forgot if this was asked, but will Alec Baldwin be prosecuted for what happened? I talked about it briefly. I think it's unlikely that there are any appropriate criminal charges, given that Alec Baldwin was doing something he was legally able to do and was told by the person responsible for the weapon that the weapon was not a live weapon, and had no intent behind doing anything other than acting. It seems that for the part of Baldwin, that is an accident. The person responsible for the weapon, is that in the realm of negligent homicide? Possibly, or negligent manslaughter? Possibly, but we don't know enough about the facts. The police are investigating. Prosecutors will have the facts and may choose to go the route of negligent homicide. We talked about that earlier in the show. Negligent homicide would include, because negligence is and I say negligent homicide, I mean involuntary manslaughter, because that would be the appropriate charge in New Mexico, is an involuntary manslaughter charge, but it is unintentional, and there has to be criminal negligence if you're doing something that is legal. And criminal negligence is generally kind of a reckless disregard. So it just depends on the situations if there is that reckless disregard based on the way things were done. And that might be the case for the person who loaded the weapon. We'll see. Are we sure Stan is actually a Stan? No. Can you file without showing ID? If his ID confirmed at filing, we should be wary of Stan's motives. Yes, you can file without an ID. His filings were just stamped by the court clerk. We don't know if Stan's a Stan. We presume Stan's a Stan because Stan filed to terminate the Britney Spears, but I did not Google the Stan at all. So let us continue on to a few more questions. So I am way behind on the questions. Apologies, chat. We have moved on. I am sorry. Question from Mother Oats. Would Rosengart try to get Jamie into a civil suit before criminal one, so that Jamie can't spend his money on a criminal defense attorney before a civil suit swoops in to claw back money? I don't know how the bond would factor into that, because the bond is going to factor into it. Criminal liability generally has restitution, but not the amount of restitution that you would see in like a civil case. So it's possible, but we're not sure. Pam, we talked about it at the top of the show. It'll be timestamped. And it looks like the law nerds have answered anyway. So yes. Sorry, my nose is just, which happens every time I stream. It's probably related. No, even when I don't drink, it happens. So apologize. Not a question, but thank you for inspiring me to pursue being a lawyer. You're welcome. Don't take out too much in student loans. They suck. You're a huge inspiration to me. My heart absolutely breaks for the Petitos. Same. I mean, absolutely same. Amanda S. said, my dentures have a last name in them. I think a lot of dentures have identifying information in them. I answered that. Absolutely say hi. The Laundrie family will be subject to the court of public opinion. They already have been, for sure. And that will be hard. Question, would the FBI name Brian as the primary suspect now that he's dead? I don't know what they've waited for. I don't know why they've waited this long. I don't know if they'll ever tell us why they've waited this long. I don't know whatever information they have that would cause them to wait this long. But yes, they could still name him a primary suspect, even though he is deceased. And if that is the case, they would probably close the investigation into Gabby Petito. If they close that investigation, I think they will release that information or hold a press conference. I really do. Cheers to all the Frosty Paw nerds who have taken their last victory lap, and to the law nerds who love them. Paw nerds. Question, can we get Dr. B's insight on the dental? Yeah, I'll ask him before I record an episode for the podcast. And Tech was letting me know people want to know about the book. This was going to be my weekend reading, but I have a friend that's popping into town. So it's not going to be my weekend reading. But this is my friend Dave Quinn's book, Not All Diamonds and Rosé. It is the hashtag not sponsored. I love Dave Quinn, though. Like, that is just, I love Dave so much. But Not All Diamonds and Rosé is kind of the oral history of Real Housewives. It has chapters on all the different franchises. It has shade. I know that Up and Adam is reading it and sharing stories from it. I know that hashtag No Filter Zach is reading stories and sharing from it. It has this really fun like timeline of housewives drama on the ins and the outs of the book, and I cannot wait to get into it. It is like 500 pages, like seriously 500 pages, but it has chapters about the different franchises. It has photos and some, I think, not released before photos about housewives, but it is an anthology. He talked to hundreds of people to put this book together, and there's information that we've never been privy to before. So this is the tea. He interviewed Andy Cohen. He interviewed producers. all of the Housewives tea. So I can't wait to read it. Dave Quinn also shared on Twitter, and I shared, oh, Fred's a fan. Hi, Fred. You're a fan of the book. Fred loves it. I shared Dave's kind of Twitter thread about his journey with dyslexia too, and you know how my heart feels about that. So I shared some of my experiences with growing up dyslexic and not knowing until I was older that was an issue for me. So and Dave runs the Bravo Clubhouse room over on Clubhouse, which I love and have been in there to talk about the different legal ins and outs of the Housewives. So, yes, that is the book. That is the book. Thank you, Fred. Oh, you're just okay. Go right ahead. If you lay on my mouse, though, I cannot scroll down and answer more questions. I love answering questions. We're going to answer a few more and then we're going to move on. I got way backed up on the questions. Apologies, chat. Some of us in chat would like to suggest you having Caitlin at Ask a Mortician guest with you and address the death questions. I didn't even know there was an Ask a Mortician channel. I will look it up for sure. KT Evans, do we know the exact date the Laundrie's lawyered up? No, we don't, but we know that they lawyered up before law enforcement went to talk to them. So sometime before that, I don't think I have the timeline of the first date law enforcement made contact with them, but they had an attorney before law enforcement talked to them. We know Brian Laundrie came back into the Florida area. Well, the Gabby Petito's van came back into the Florida area September 1st. And then we know that they went camping over Labor Day weekend, September 6th. And we know that she was reported missing by her family September 11th, and that Gabby Petito's family had been trying to get in touch with the Laundries, and they ignored their calls and did not respond to them. He said that was at his direction. So I imagine sometime between September 1st and September 11th is when they talked to their attorney. I don't think he ever said an exact date, but he has definitely said a lot. There are a lot of interviews. And I think myself and others, I know we'll be going over his statements more in the coming days. He's talked on a lot of different platforms and talked a lot. So can the Laundrie parents try to claim the reward for helping police find him? I don't know if they would try that. And I don't know what exclusions that has. There are normally some exclusions, but technically they did help find him. So we will see what they do with that. I don't think that would go well. I don't think that would go well. So thank you. They are I've totally blanked. I've totally blanked. You know what I mean. The chat knows what I mean. Chat, put them in the chat. Kendra Scott. I was stuck on the K. We couldn't get past it. So only have one pet, but the theme is Marvel, dog named Odin. I mean, the Marvel universe has an epic amount of space for animal names. Carol, like most things, Target, but I think that this was last year. I tend to keep things for an inordinately long period of time, but Target. We love Target. Lots of Target. Lots and lots. We're bougie with some things, but not with others. So I love this community too, Erica. Thank you. So let me get to just a few more and then I'm going to bounce. I just love talking to you guys. So, Robbie question. I'm sure if it's known, it's been said, but is it known how Brian died? No, it is not. The autopsy is complete with no cause or manner of death listed. They are absolutely going. They sent the bones out to pathology to try to figure it out. Not pathology, archaeology to try to. I'm so used to things going to pathology that my brain just went there. They are sending the remains out to be studied further, and they are going out to an anthropologist. Not pathology. There's nothing to path on the bones. Question: in situations like the Murdaugh case where the police are shutting out higher law enforcement agencies but are suspected of shenanigans, are there other ways than subpoenas that the FBI can get in? It just depends on the situation, but jurisdiction is still a thing, and sometimes you just don't have authority, but sometimes the local FBI can get involved. It just depends. Sometimes the state agency can get involved. Yes, there are other ways, but it very much is factually specific. So, questions: how much are investigations led by the police versus the DA's office? God, I hate saying lawyerly things like it depends. It depends on the jurisdiction, the agreement with the DA's office, the type of case it is, and the way that those jurisdictions work. So it it just depends. In LA, there are courthouses where, the police bring a full investigation to the DA and are like, "Here, can we file this?" And the DA looks at it and goes, "Yes, these are the crimes," or "No, you need to go get this information." In different types of prosecutions, they work more closely with the DAs, and the DAs and police interview victims together. That's particularly true in more sensitive cases and cases involving children. And they, in white collar crime, a lot of the specialized units will work closely with law enforcement. So it really, really, really depends on the type of investigation. That can also happen with the U.S. Attorney's Office that works closely with federal agents on investigations that they are doing. So it depends. Sometimes it's just like the police bring the case to the DA and the DA files the charges. Sometimes not. It varies so much based on the type of case, the jurisdiction, if it's in a special unit, if it's not a special unit, if it's a special investigative unit. So hopefully that answers, but doesn't answer, right? It depends, but it depends. It depends and it depends, which is the lawyerliest way to say anything. Question: can local officials not allow FBI to take over a case? If the FBI, well, it's again with jurisdiction, it can be hard. If the FBI has to have a reason to take over the case, and there has to be some implication to make it federal. If it's strictly local, it can be hard for the FBI to take over an investigation, because they don't have the jurisdiction. If they have the jurisdiction, they can say, "We have jurisdiction. It's ours now," which is what has happened in this case. There has never, I don't think, been a disagreement about that, but we don't know what the ins and outs of how local law enforcement feels about the FBI. Often, sometimes it's welcome, sometimes it's not. And there has to be a reason. So the FBI has to have jurisdiction. There has to be some federal reason why they do, or they have to be asked in. Jax commandeered my phone to send catnip tip to his twin brother from another mother, Fred. Fred appreciates it. He is lounging gloriously on my desk. So he is very, very happy. I saw this question and the apple caught my eye, which is how Happle happened. Not a question. All my Apple devices are named after Marvel characters, and kiddos is Pokemon characters. I love that. I like naming things. I name cars. I name all kinds of stuff. I name all kinds of stuff. Fred is taking a bath on my desk. Alec is about to blame the gun, just like. Look, I don't think he's going to blame the gun. But I think he has released a statement of sympathy. I understand Fred's tale. I understand, but the prop master is probably the person that is going to end up with that. Y'all, it has been over 2 hours. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. It's just tonight is it's a lot of heavy cases. Fred like wants to be in it, but then I pick him up. He doesn't want to be in it. So he's just doing the thing. He's doing the things. It depends is so hard with the lawyers because it's like, well, if the facts are this, then it's this. But if the facts are this, then it's this. And it's why when you go to a lawyer, it's like lawyers will look at like what the question is and then be like, but if this, then this, 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 if this, then this. Like there's a lot. And lawyers' brains kind of do that. Well, they should do that of exploring all the different possibilities because it's often not cut and dry. I shouldn't say never. It's often not cut and dry. It just depends. Thank you, Law Nerds, for being here. If you want to keep up with what I am doing, social media, the behind the scenes stuff. I haven't been on Instagram a ton this week because I've just been working and it's been busy, but the behind the scenes stuff of my life and the cats and all that stuff is on Instagram at the Emily D. Baker. If you want kind of the faster updates on stuff that I'm looking at, articles I'm reading, stuff I'm keeping track of, that's all on Twitter at the Emily D. Baker, of course. And you're always welcome to subscribe here, turn the bell on, keep an eye on the community tab. Polls will be going up for COPO. I cannot post a poll on Twitter right now, and it's been driving me nuts for 2 days. So those are on the community tab right now. They will be up on Twitter when they're available. I don't know why it won't. It just won't. I'm going to try it from my phone. I've been trying it from my web app. So we will see what's going on with Twitter. That's where I share that. And if you want to join the Law Nerd community, you're welcome to join the conversation over on Patreon. I ask the Patreons a lot of questions. We have a members only podcast. More episodes are coming, I promise. I have been meaning to sit down and record them, but they are coming. So yay. So that is what's going on. That's why there's no COPO tonight, but that will be up on the community tab. It's up now. It's partially up on Twitter. So if you go to my Twitter, the bracket is posted if you want to fill out your own and post it under that post so we can see your brackets. And that is it. Thank you guys for being with us. Have a wonderful Friday. Fred says good night. Do you want to come up and say good night? He does. Oh, he's just purring. He has gotten so big. These ginger cats are not small cats. You are not a small kitten. You are a large kitten. You are a large, lovely, fluffy, booted kitten. All right, good night. I always have to look out for that tail. There is a gif of him hitting me in the face with the tail, and then it gets stuck in the lip gloss. It's a mess. Fred, thank you. Mods, thank you. Law Nerds, thank you. I will see you in the next one. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Bye. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, LawNerdsUnite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.